So for some reason, the audio right at the beginning of the video didn't work, but basically what I'm going to go over is just some basic off-road gear and essentials.
So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is first aid kit. I think it's always good to carry a first aid kit with you in your vehicle. So this is one I carry in my Jeep all the time. I just keep it in there. I can swap it back and forth. Probably going to buy another one so I can just leave one in each Jeep, but I've kind of been swapping it back and forth, you know, depending on what I'm doing, which one I'm using. So this one I keep in there all the time. Then I have a nicer kit that I have at the house. And if I'm going on longer trips or whatever, I'll take this one. Or if I'm going in like my camper stuff, I'll take this one. But anyway, I think that's something that's pretty important. I'm not going to go through all the stuff that's in it, but you want something that's got your basic stuff and everything in there, and kind of go through and check it out and see what you've got. But I think that's important because you never know when something might happen. You might need something, any from minor to band-aids to something more, you know, critical. So that's the first thing I've got. Another thing that I learned the hard way is always carry a fire extinguisher. So I keep these in my Jeeps. Actually, I keep these in every one of my vehicles. Because years ago in my diesel, I was coming back from getting firewood, coming from Horseshoe Bend, and evidently my turbo had gotten a little loose. So it was blowing hot air on the firewall, and it caught the firewall on fire. And I didn't have a fire extinguisher, so I pulled over, didn't know what was going on. It had making a terrible noise. So I pulled over and opened the hood, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's fire. Happened to be a guy with a camper there that had a fire extinguisher and used it and put it out. And then I had some bottles of water, and I finished using it to make sure it was all out. And so it didn't burn it up. We were able to get it on time, but now I always keep a fire extinguisher in my vehicle. So especially, you know, well, really you should keep it in all your vehicles, but so I keep it in my Jeeps as well. So and then the next thing is it's just nice to have some lighting, whether you're, you know, sometimes even when it's light, if you want to see up inside underneath the Jeep or something, it's nice to have lighting. So I keep anywhere from a little light that's just super bright, something that clips on your hat, or you can get the ones that wrap around your head. This is what I use a lot lately because I can recharge the battery and it lasts a long time, and it works great. And so this is what I used a lot this last year. But anyway, some type of lighting just so you can either see when it's dark to change a tire or whatever, you know, whatever problem you have, or even sometimes during, like I said, during the daytime when you can't see up underneath the vehicle or in the engine bay compartment good or something. So the next thing I think I'm going to talk about is just some of the recovery type stuff that we ought to, you know, keep in the vehicles. And this basic stuff. I mean, you can go beyond this and do even more, which depending on what trips I'm doing, I do generally bring even more, but just your basic stuff, like if I'm just going out to do a little bit of this or that, these are some of the stuff I generally try to keep with me, you know, all the time. All right, so starting kind of with the recovery gear, I think something that's really important is an actual winch on the front of your vehicle, or, you know, some way to recover yourself if you're by yourself. Of course, you do have to have, you know, something to hook onto, but there's different systems you can do, whether you hook it onto a tree or something like that, or a rock. They have some other stuff you can dig into the ground and bury it and then hook into that and pull yourself out. But winch is pretty important. They are a little more expensive than some of this other stuff, but I think that's a pretty important thing to do as soon as you can. If for some reason you don't have a winch, I'd at least get a strap, you know, something like this. So if you do get stuck, you got some way, if somebody comes along, to get you out. So if you have a strap or something like this, at least carry some basics like that. A strap or kinetic rope, or both. Here's a kinetic rope. I really like these for pulling if you're really stuck. These are really nice. They actually stretch, and these stretch pretty good. I've used it several times now in the snow, and you'll hit it and it just stretches, and then the other vehicle just kind of comes. You don't get a jerk or anything. It's just really smooth and soft. So I really like these. It's kind of bulky, and these are fairly expensive too, but these work awesome. Super good. So anyway, I'm just just some of your basic. I mean, if you had a kinetic rope or a strap, maybe a couple, you know, some of these are a soft shackle, so it kind of replaces your hard shackle, which is like this. Whoops, like this. These are still nice to have along just in case for certain things, but these pretty much work. I mean, these are really nice, and I think they're a little safer, and they're actually really strong. This is all I've been using lately. If I'm hooking to anything, they work really good. But it basically, yeah, it just slips through there, and then when you go back through, that tightens down on there, and it's not going anywhere. I mean, it works really good. So I think it's good to have some soft shackles, you know, or some kind of a rope. Gloves are really, especially if you got a winch. Gloves, it's nice to have a set of gloves. I keep both my Jeeps. I got a recovery set for both my Jeeps. This one hasn't been using much because it was in my truck, which didn't use much. But now it's in my Jeep, and of course the other one I've used a lot of stuff in it. This kinetic rope goes back and forth between both Jeeps. Then some kind of a snatch block or whatever. So you basically you'd put this. Take a look at this real quick. So you're going to put this. So if you're going to hook to a tree, you'd actually put a tree saver there, and then you can stuff this through there. And this will hook like that, and then your winch line will go through here, wrap around there, and it'll spin. You can use it to, basically just hook to a tree or snatch from a different angle. There was not this last summer, but the summer before, we were up playing in the snow and having a good time, and we got clear up one trail we're going on, and my brother, of course, he wouldn't have kept pushing if he wouldn't have had another vehicle and knew we had ways to get out, but he got up in the snow enough where it started to slide over the edge. And so the only way we'd get him out, we actually had a big tree up on the top, up the hill away. So we actually ran my winch up to the tree, snatch blocked it from there, ran the winch back down, hooked to the back of his bumper, and then he ran his winch up to another tree just to make sure the front end didn't want to go over. And then we just worked it back up onto the road, and he was able to back out. So having all these extra things really makes a difference if you get in the wrong, in certain situations. So it's nice to have a snatch block to go along with that stuff, and then a tree saver. So this is just a regular strap. It's good for towing. It's not as good for pulling out really hard. The kinetic rope is better. And then this is just a tree saver. You can wrap around the tree, so it's a little shorter. You can wrap around the tree, hook that soft shackle to it and whatever. But so this kind of a basic kit. I mean, I've got, it's probably a little more than a basic kit, but it works really good with what stuff I've got in here. I've also got a way to kit to repair my winch line if it breaks. But anyway, so that's kind of the recovery gear part of it. You don't always need it, but when you do, you do. And when you need it, it's super nice to have. We use them. I mean, the harder stuff you're going to do, especially I haven't used it much in the rocks, but I've used it quite a bit in snow and stuff like that. But you can run into the same problems in the rocks too. But anyway, I mean, like I said, we've used them quite a bit in the snow, getting each other out or whatever. Another thing that is nice that kind of need to have is some kind of an air compressor and a way to air your tires down. So this is what I generally carry, is just you can hook that to your valve stem. This screws on this way, and then you use this to pull out your stem, pull it out, and you put the air down, and then you can take it down to whatever pounds of pressure you want on it. So it's good to have something like that to air down, get a little more traction in the rocks, or a little more flotation in the snow, sand, stuff like that. But then if you do that, you gotta have a way to put it back up. And so whether you have just a compressor you can carry in your Jeep that's not actually attached to your Jeep, or one that's actually hooked into your Jeep. Like I have an ARB, twin ARB compressor in each Jeep, but I also have an ARB that's just in a box, like a toolbox deal, which I was going to bring and forgot to grab that. But I used for the first quite a while. So it's a little less money, and if you have more, you can just throw it in and take it out when you don't need it. But it worked real good. I used that up until I went to 40s in my other Jeep, and once I went to 40s, I wanted something that could air up a little quicker, so I went to the dual compressor. But it worked really good with my 37s. So that makes it, I mean, and you can do that too if you're kind of somewhat stuck. I've gotten stuck in the snow, and you air down, and a lot of times you can just drive out. So it just depends, as long as you don't bury yourself too much. If you bury yourself too much, it may not work. But so anyway, makes a big difference on your off-road stuff. So the next thing that's really important is some tools. So I've got a roll bag that I carry a bunch in. I have a couple other things too that I take along with me, but just having a nice set of tools, because we've used them every once in a while. In fact, right after I got this Jeep built last summer, one of the camp trips were up there, and I had a horrible noise. It's like something hitting in the front. And it took me a little bit to figure it out, but I figured out that one of the bolts, when they'd put it on, it was turned just enough that it was catching the skid plate to my bumper. And so it was just, it's metal on metal. So I was able to, well, actually, I found out I was missing a wrench. The size I needed to take that, loosen that and turn it a little bit, I didn't have it. Luckily, my brother was there, and he had that one, so that's one I had to add to the kit. But I was able to loosen that and adjust it. And then, of course, there's other things. You never know when you're going to need some tools. But so it's good to have a set of tools. And I keep a fair amount. I also, along with tools, I always carry some zip ties, because there's amazing what you can do with zip ties for different things. So I keep some of these, just if something comes loose, I can zip tie it back up or whatever. Another thing that's really nice, and we've used these, is some ratchet straps. Last summer, my brother, the brackets that mount the control arms to the axle ripped off the axle, and the whole axle rolled. In fact, I did a video on that. If you go back, and you can find it and see it. But the axle rolled, so we used these to put around there, strap underneath, and then strap it to the bumper to keep it from going any further up, and then we pull them out with my Jeep. So you can use these for a lot of different things. At least you get you off the trail, and then you can get whatever's broke fixed. So these are really, I carry 3 or 4 of these, and I kind of rolled them up and put a zip tie on them just so they're not all loose. In fact, I've got one in the back Jeep that we used recently that I need to do that, put it back like this. So anyway, so that covers, well, there's a couple more tools that I think that I generally keep. So this is the kit so this is the kit, this is the kit that I use with my air compressor, my dual compressor. This has got my hoses, I just have one hose. And then there's some other things in here too, so you can air up your tires. So I have one of these for each of my Jeeps. It makes it kind of nice. So I'm gonna put that back here. And then this is something I think is really good. My other Jeep's got a dual battery system, but I still carry this with me when I go. So if my main battery dies, I can push a button up there, and I got 10 seconds to run in, and it'll jump the second battery to the first battery and start up. But having a way to start your vehicle if your battery dies is really nice. And so I've got one of these. It's kind of a jump battery. It's got the cables that come with it. Basically, this plugs into that, and then you can connect these to your batteries. And I've used this a couple times. In fact, one time, not this kit, but another, when I had a jet boat, we were out for the day, and then we got ready to come home. The batteries had been in that boat for quite some time, and it wouldn't start. Well, luckily I had one of those, and we were able to jump and it started right up, and we were able to go home, or back to the trailer and the truck. So I've used those every once in a while. They're nice to have, and they're not a ton of money, but it's the difference from getting your vehicle started or not. So super nice. And then another thing I like to have, especially in this Jeep where I don't have a spare with me all the time. I do have a spare, but a tire repair kit. And this is ARB one, and so it has all your stuff in there to actually be able to repair your tire. So I keep one of these in there. In fact, I just have one of these, and I just move it back and forth between each Jeep, depending on which one I'm using. If I'm going to both of them, mostly stays in this one because I don't have a spare, but if I take the other one and go camping or wheeling or something, if I'm not taking this one, I'll throw it back in my other Jeep. So that covers a lot of the tools and, recovery gear and all that stuff. Oh, one other thing is a jack. A lot of guys use the handyman jacks, I've had them. I like these better. I just like a ball jack. They're easier to use. You're trying to jack these Jeeps up, trying to find a spot to hook on to jack it up with a handyman jack, and then they got so much travel, you have to jack them forever, and are kind of dangerous if you ask me. But these ones I can just put underneath, if I want to change a tire or something, I can just put it underneath the axle, and I like this better. And it's smaller, and this is what's worked really good for me for a lot of years, both in my Jeeps and trucks and everything. So let's just take a look at a couple other things that I think are pretty essential to have when you're out on the trail. All right, a couple final things. One thing I think is really essential is some kind of a satellite communication tool. I've talked about this in quite a few of my other videos, but this is super nice because if you do get stuck or you break down or you get injured or anything, at least you have a way to communicate or send out for some help. And it does have a SOS button on it, or you're at least able to contact some family or friends or somebody and kind of let them know where you're at, and they can come help you out. So this is, I think, they're a little bit of money, but I mean, I think these are really important. This is what I use in InReach, a Garmin InReach. There's other forms of it too that you can use, but this has worked really good for me. And no matter where I've been able to send a message, even in the mountains, way back in, anywhere. It's always worked for me. So I think this is really, really critical to have. Something I've put together quite a few years ago is kind of I don't know, you can call it a get home bag or whatever, but it's just something you can grab and throw in the vehicle, especially, if you're going on shorter trips or whatever, or even longer ones. But it's got quite a few different things, and I'm not going to go through everything in the bag. If you're interested in that, I can always do a video showing kind of what I keep in there, but there is some food. I do keep some water in there, and then there's other things, rope, different types of stuff, a knife, different things, that you can use in case you get in trouble. And it's of course in the backpack, so if you have to walk, you can throw that on your back and start walking. So, but anyway, that's a nice piece. It's a nice thing to have put together. It took me a little bit to put it together, but just over time, then you can adjust it, to how you like it, or what you find you've needed or don't need. But anyway, nice to have just in case. So anyway, that's kind of some of your basic off-road stuff that'll, if you get out there and you get in trouble, you can kind of, get yourself out of trouble in one way or another. But that's kind of the basics. There's, of course, a lot more you can add to this. I just kind of wanted to go over some basic stuff that would, anywhere from short trips to a longer trip. Like when I'm going camping, there's more stuff I take with me. Chainsaws, different things. And depending on where I'm going camping, I guess in the mountains or not in the mountains, the desert, there's a few things I'll add to this, or I guess don't really take away from this, but I can add to it, whether, it be chainsaw for the mountains, if you've got a tree that comes down to get through. And then there's you can even go into more things like parts for your vehicle. Like if there's some weak points on your vehicle, carry extra parts that you can change out, a hub or an axle or whatever it might be. But so there's lots more you can do than this. This is just kind of a basic, some basic ideas on what you can carry that would cover a lot of problems you might have. So anyway, I think I'm gonna leave it at that, and hopefully you got something out of it. But I guess we'll see you on the next one.